Hey, everybody out there in the virtual verse. Um, my name's Ivy. I'm one of the, I guess, sort of helping programmer helpers for the Women's Festival. And then I also the executive director at the Brattle Theater, where the is one of the venues that the festival normally takes place at. And we've also got Joanne here, our executive director, and Sarah, our festival extraordinaire. Do you have an official title now, Sarah?
Um, I've been saying social media coordinator.
You're definitely that, as well as the other things.
Everything.
I know, exactly. We all wear many hats, as
Yeah.
many small nonprofits do. And for anyone who's out there in the world, thank you for joining us to talk about Proxima, which I'm really excited to talk about. Um, the the film, hopefully everyone's seen it, because I am not going to worry about spoilers at this point. And there are some, so if you haven't, don't watch. Like, we're recording this, don't watch it now, go back afterwards. But so Proxima is the third feature by director Alice Winocour. And I spent a fair amount of time doing research on it. I mean, when I first learned about it last year in 2019, honestly, all I needed to know was a film with Eva Green about space. I had nothing more than that. I didn't know if she was in space, if she was going to space. I watched a trailer, so I knew there was something about a mother-daughter relationship, but it was definitely sold more as a sci-fi film. You know, after watching it, I consider it to be part of what is one of my favorite genres, which is the procedural. And that it's really a procedural about what it's like to be an astronaut, and specifically, and I'm going to try to say this as little as possible, a woman astronaut, because of course, just saying that tells you a lot about an industry. Um, and I really love procedurals. So I find the experience of being a fly on the wall and really seeing how someone goes about doing something and starts one place and gets to the other end, I find it riveting. So I really enjoyed the space that the filmmaker provided in the film to really share that with us. And in my research, one of the things that was interesting is that the film was shot on all of those actual locations while astronauts were actually being trained to go into space. It's the first film that's ever had access to Star City specifically. And the whole experience of, like, you train in one place and then you go to Star City and then you go to Kazakhstan is actually, like, that's the only way to get to the space station that we have now. Like, they only send the rockets up from Kazakhstan, so you're really getting to experience it. One of the things I saw in one of the Q&As that Alice said was, there's not a lot of set dressing when it comes to those locations. The rooms that the characters are in are the rooms. You know, she's like, I didn't choose the sheets. I didn't choose what's on the walls. I didn't choose the lighting. And it also meant she got to speak to a lot of people training to be astronauts. And she said she spent a fair amount of time, like she spent a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, doing research, just talking to people who've trained. And I think it's really clear in the film, even though the main characters do go to space, that she's like, one of the things that's really interesting about being an astronaut is that all you do is train for something you may never do. Like, the likelihood of actually being chosen to go to space is so low, but you still go all through that training. So I also liked the inclusion of that one character who's like the understudy, although he's, you know, a little threatening because he's threatening Eva Green's character's position in space. So the other things that I thought were interesting when I was doing my research is that Alice likes to make films that are set, this is from her words, that are set in other landscapes so that she can study emotional relation and personal relationships more clearly because they're surrounded by the other, as it were, which I thought was very interesting. One of her films, one of her other films, Augustine, it was her first feature, is about the hysteria movement in the, I'm not sure I'm going to say the right era, but the Victorian era or something. But she's like, it's about the emotions, but she wanted to set it in the past so that you could really investigate the emotional stuff and not be so worried about the reality of the moment of today. And she said that's one of the reasons that she was really attracted to doing a film about astronauts. She's like, she's been interested in space. I mean, I think that in some ways it's hard for any of us who are, I mean, Sarah, I don't know. This is actually a question for you. Like, I grew up in the shuttle era, right? So I grew up, my parents saw the moon landing, so like they watched it. You know, I believe that it happened, so let's just go with that. But they watched the moon landing, and you know, then I had these like constant space shuttle experiences in my childhood, but then NASA went silent for a long time. Like, do you feel like space was fed to you as a, like being an astronaut is sort of like one of the coolest things that you could do?
Oh, that's a really good question. I feel like for me personally, obviously I can't speak to all people in my age group.
Right.
But like for me personally, it definitely was like just a cool job, but
Mm,
no one I knew growing up ever was like, I want to be an astronaut and like had that as like a serious goal. And I always thought, yeah, that would be a cool job to go into space, but I would rather be a fashion designer at age
right.
10, you know?
Right. I mean,
Like
I think that the like heroes of media from the last 20 years, 30 years have definitely not been sort of going to space. I mean, it's not
right.
financially viable. So, you
Yeah, and
know.
it's like it's very inaccessible, just like the just space in general and like all
Right.
the physics and mathematics and science that you have to know to even get like an understanding really of
Right.
before it becomes even interesting.
Right.
Um like the idea of space is cool, but like you really get into it like from like science fiction films. Um
Right.
and like I feel like people in my age group specifically like might just like the idea of it and like the genre, but not the pursuit of an actual job in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I haven't met someone that wants to be a part of NASA or wants to be an
Right.
astronaut or
You
anything.
know.
Really like it. And if they are into science, it's usually biology or engineering, computer science, things
Right.
like that.
That's really the cutting edge science now, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
I mean, it was also a cool job. There was a lot of NASA also in the movies when I was a kid. Um, you know, there's all those movies about the failed space, you know, moon missions and things.
Right.
But when I learned how much motion sickness training you have to do, like the centrifugal force scene in the film, I mean, I never literally pursued being an astronaut, but I was like, that's out for me. Like incredible motion sickness. I was like, nope, they'll never let me in. I cannot do this.
Yeah,
I
even just
thought,
watching that scene, I was like, oh my gosh. And it's not like it's spinning that hard, but I was like, oh, and I just
oh,
like
but it is if her skin is like being pulled back.
I know,
That was
yeah, but
the,
it just looks kind of slow. So like at first you're
exactly
just like, no way, that's that crazy. But it's like
I had
9 of force and you don't know what that really is.
right.
And then like, and when she steps out and she's like trying to keep her composure because Matt Dillon is right there, like staring her down, like ready for her to break. And I was like, how is she not puking? And then she does it in the next scene, but like behind closed doors. And I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, relatable.
Exactly. No, I thought that scene was really powerful because you are watching it thinking it's basically a simulation. And then when her skin starts to move back, you're like, oh, Eva Green is doing this. And that was something else I found out in my research, is that Eva Green did train. You know, they were at the locations, you know, and that felt important to her. And one of the things, I'm sure you guys noticed it too, but it's sort of a delicate piece of the film, but something that I saw Alice talk about was how everything about being an astronaut, like the physics of the mechanical things and where they are built for men's bodies.
Yeah.
I'm not
That
surprised.
scene where she's like bending over and there's that giant thing on her back, and she's like, oh, I have to do, like, it's built for these bodies that are all strong on the upper body.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really,
I think she did such a good job of like every sign, every moment really when she was training or surrounded by the men. There was always like one comment or one aspect of like that was just like, remember you're a woman and you're in our world,
glad
right?
to have her up there because I hear French women cook really well. Ugh.
And you know he was thinking something else because he had such a long pause before he said that. Oh, sorry, my voice got high there.
No, there's that scene close to the end too, where I was like, don't be that bad. Like where he's like, oh, really the only way we can do this is if we do this. And I was really glad when that's the line that character has a line, that's, he's not a total creep.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I thought was great, because
That's
then
good to have
you have to start asking her about her choice to be in cooperation with someone that is that creepy, right? Then it turns into like, does that character, is she complicit in this, and it turns into a different film. But
right, yeah. Yeah.
One of the quotes that I found, Alice talking about the astronauts, the thing they talk about at the end of the film, or sort of, I think in the last act, where they talk about how damaging it is to your body to go to space.
Yeah. 40 years on your cells, 40 cells go through 40 years in a year.
It's crazy. And she was saying that the growth that because I wasn't thinking that growth was very significant. And she's like, they're in pain by the fact that they're growing, and then they come back and they're all atrophied and weird. And she's like, it's an incredibly damaging thing that they're doing to their body. And that astronauts, one of the things that many told her was that being an astronaut is an experience in fragility, because you're pushing, even if you never go to space, you're constantly pushing your body to the limit of what it can do.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell with all the training scenes how like difficult it is. That's one of the things I really enjoyed about it. Just it really like, I guess, gave you an inside scoop on what it takes to become a astronaut, and like just like the grueling aspect of it that you have to put your body through. That's
I hadn't thought about that idea of the procedural Ivy before, but you're absolutely right that that's the thing that kind of drives it in a way. You get to see the behind the scenes of what it's like to train to not just be a woman astronaut, but to be an astronaut. And but she's so strong as a character.
Yeah.
I found myself thinking of, Cuarón's Gravity, which I remember opening night, and I remember sitting there because we're sci-fi fans, and sitting there and thinking the film was so no matter how beautiful it was so implausible. It felt so unbelievable. This felt so real, except maybe in her choice right toward the end. But it really felt.
I know. My husband Ned got really angry.
So did I.
And he was like, no. You don't get to go anymore. You don't get to do that.
This film and do that. I know why, metaphorically, I wanted that to be her dream. I wanted her to be dreaming that if I could fix this.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like saying to Alice, if you had made it that, it would be perfect.
Yeah. It didn't bother me because by that point, I actually thought she was not going to go. Like I believed that the character was that torn at that point. She'd almost like fallen apart, and then she's looking at this relationship that may actually be destroyed. But like, I love that in addition to it being this procedural, like the other thing was the emotional procedural that was happening between both of these characters to try to figure out
how do we do
how to manage this separation. I mean, one of the most powerful scenes to me in the film was, and there are a number, but the scene where the daughter strays away from the party and starts to explore.
Oh, that was
So
brilliant.
great.
Brilliant. In like it was NASA or wherever they are, where she walks into
Yeah.
the exhibits on the space exploration, and it's this one little girl with her tutu on walking around in this incredible, and again it seems like Alice almost just that wasn't a location they built. That's
right, that's just there, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, go explore. And I could really picture, I don't know how she did this as a director to be able to give that much character to a child that actually she doesn't talk, like she doesn't have she's just a person, right? Like
those silent
I felt so, her intentions were so clear to me that she's like, okay, this is what my mom's going to do, and then she's going to do that, and then this is what that's going to look like, and like really trying to understand. And I really did actually appreciate the animal metaphor at the end. I thought that was beautiful.
And the last scene
that was really nice.
Not the cliche. The cliche, right, would have been that moment if when the space shuttle, when liftoff, right? That would have been the cliche, but that wasn't where it ended.
Yeah.
It surprised me.
I know.
It's saying here that the exhibit narrations, like were about like the crash that happened.
Oh, right.
Right, actually.
That's right. I remember that. And so then you're like, oh, I've been, I felt like I was sitting in the daughter's mind going, oh, she's lied to me.
Yeah. I'm like, what's going to happen to my mom? Like, am I ever going to see her again?
Right. Right.
And I think that's like emphasized too with like those really silent moments that's like pocketed throughout the films from her perspective of her on looking to other families and other children playing together with their parents, and how she has a broken home with divorced parents and they don't really get
speak the same language, don't live in the same country.
Yeah.
Like, when I realized she was relocated to a different country I was like, that is jarring.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I found out is that the little girl that played the daughter is actually also like has all those dyslexia challenges.
Wow. That's great, actually. Kudos to Alice for bringing in someone who actually has, ability, limited abilities and playing the character. Talking about realism. That's great. And she was fabulous, that little girl.
Yeah. So Alice said one of the things, and I definitely think this comes across, Alice is a mother. And when the film, probably when she started making it, her daughter was 10 last year. So probably around the time she was making it, it was about the same age as her daughter. And that one of the things that she really wanted to show, other than really giving voice to the history of women in the astronaut industry, which if anybody didn't stick around for the credits, please go back and watch the credits because they are so wonderful. But the challenge that mothers have to always feel like they're not doing it right and they're not doing enough. And I feel like that's that's why I feel why the character does go and do something incredible, wrong, right? Like putting people's lives in danger felt a little real when I was watching it with what's going on with our government, but that she was like, that's how over the top women can feel about the pressure to be a good mom.
Yeah, it reminded me of, sorry.
No.
I just wanted to say that it reminded me of like the families that I nannied for, and the difference that the moms would always take the most pressure as opposed to the dads. Always, every single situation that I've been in, it's always been like that. And it's like both parents have to go away for some time, and they spend either weeks to months away from their children. And for some reason, the dad always comes back happy-go-lucky, no worries. And the moms are always feeling like they have to compensate times 10 for all that time that they lost with their children. And I thought like that sort of aspect in it like came across so well, and just like how she was Sarah was just doing so much to try and like keep her kid comfortable, and then also just know that she's loved and that she's doing the best that she can to provide for her. And yeah, like that was a really touching part of it, and I'm really happy that that was like an integral part of the story, and it wasn't just this person becoming an astronaut, it was her overcoming like that division and separation between like herself, her job, her career, and then the fact that she has a daughter that she loves and cares for.
Challenge of ambition for women is for women with families, you know, it's constantly split. What were you going to say, Joanne?
Yeah, I was going to say I liked about it was that it wasn't like she conflicted. It was much more nuanced. It was much closer to what a mother feels like, and I'm sure that's Alice bringing it, because she really feels it's a lot to that, you know, that idea of, it wasn't this.
Oh no. Zoom. The world of Zoom.
She'd love. Am I cutting out?
Now you're back. You're back.
All right, I'm gonna move from
I did that, you guys. I was like, oh, I forgot. Yeah, the other thing, I wanted to just give a little shout out to Alice's other films. Both of her other films, Augustine and Disorder, are both available to watch on Prime. And they sound really interesting. And she also co-wrote, Sarah, I don't know if you saw this film, and if you didn't, definitely hunt it out. She co-wrote this amazing Turkish French co-production, Mustang, which came out in, I think it was 2015. Yeah, and it was one of my favorite films of the year. It was nominated for an Academy Award, which, you know, for the international films isn't always a sign that it's, you know, the best, but it's an incredible film. So she also comes from a screenwriting background. So I think that that's why she's able to marry these two agendaed goals for the film into one like really clearly synthesized script.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was so well written and portrayed by the actors in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really captivating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She also did say she intentionally cast like an American, a Russian, and a European, because that is like,
that's how it would go. Yeah.
The idea. What did you guys think of the triptych, the team triptych, the sort of, especially the dichotomy between the two male characters and sort of how they balance each other? I thought that was a really thoughtful way to handle, once again, to handle it so that she's not in a fully toxic environment, considering how hard what she's doing is. You know, it's not saying like this is some horribly misogynist, toxic work environment. It just has that as part of it.
Yeah, it's like it's in the air.
I think that, yeah, I mean, the Russian character is, we expect him to be the hard
ass,
and he's not. You know, that he's the one who kind of understands. You know, he states that gorgeous poem when they're.
That scene is so wonderful.
That scene is just beautiful because there's no weirdness about the three of them looking up at the stars together and, you know, sharing a drink together as crewmates. There's no weirdness, you know, and that's excellent, actually.
Yeah. What were some of your other favorite moments?
I like the moment when she doesn't rat Matt Dillon out.
Yeah.
When she makes that choice. And it's just a natural choice for her because they've been training as a team. Once they blow the team up, it's the end, you know, it's the end. And in that moment, she's not trying to win his, you know, affection, but yet, you know, she's not trying to, you know, win him over.
Right. At that point, she's like, I'll swear at you if you say something I don't like, but I'm also I'm in your team.
Yeah.
Right. And being on the team, that moment that was really harrowing when they're underwater and she's got to, lug him.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the moment when I kept thinking he's trying to get her, he's trying to get her off this team.
Yep.
He's going to make himself like heavy. He's going to do something to, and but even so, that she made it by, by a hair. I thought that was, and to film that underwater like that must
Yeah.
be interesting.
You could see
And the
his face.
shout back when it happens again, at the end of the training when she is really struggling, and his character gets the opportunity to protect her. Like he spent that was a scene where I was like, oh, that's what he was talking about at the beginning when he was like, you should pull back, you should do less, and it sounds horrible and condescending. But maybe it was also like, I know how hard this is, and you're going to struggle. It sucks that he wouldn't say that to a man, but
right.
But she does, that the wound that won't heal, and
I kept thinking she was going to be denied to going into space because of the wound, because of the way the film has been marketed, and because of, I just kept thinking she's not, guys, sorry, spoiler. I just kept thinking she's not going to make, this is happen. She's going to jeopardize her trip because of the feeling about the child.
Right.
Yeah. That was like my favorite moments were just the ones with her kid. Like I think every single one of them, but mostly with the ones where she trails off, and like that scene in the party when she goes off and like is looking at all the things and just like trying to experience and like see her mother's world through what she can, like what's available to her. And then also like when they were having the meeting and she's like underneath the table like playing with her shoes, I thought that was so sweet. Like it just reminded me of my childhood, is like when my parents are like busy and I just want their attention so bad, and like I'll just,
so bored.
Yeah, I'll just bother them as much as I can while trying not to be a nuisance, but still being a nuisance.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I loved all those moments. I thought they were so sweet.
I liked the moment when she had to go take the that they had to go get rid of let the newts go into the water, and then the newts
was really nice.
And it's just, I realize it's a metaphor, but it's still the way it's played. It's just played as a real moment between mom and child, and lots of those moments. That moment when they stay in the pool together longer.
Yes.
Miss being on time, which is is an issue.
Right.
But she can't let go, but she keeps looking at her watch. It's kind of metaphorical for what most parents feel with as that
yes. Exactly.
She's going into space.
Yeah.
And she's like shivering and like she's like ready to come out of the pool, but like her mind is like, no, like I only have this short amount of time with you, mom. Like I don't want to lose it.
Yeah. And if you've ever gone swimming with a kid, they never want to get out of the pool.
No.
They're always like, you're like, luckily you hopefully can be like, your lips are purple, now we have to go.
Yeah.
Are there any other final thoughts or shout outs, things that you want to make sure people keep an eye out for? While you were gone, Joanne, I was also letting people know that her other 2 films are on Prime, which I'm letting you know as well.
I can't wait to watch them. I haven't seen them before, and this is just remarkable. Actually, this film is. We'll be releasing a version of this film completely in English with the. That's when, is that my understanding? Am I right, Ivy? Is that they're thinking about releasing it in
it has a distributor now, is why we were able to actually play it in North America, because last year they were working on getting a US distributor, and I can't remember who we got it from, but it's definitely a distributor I know. Now, whether they decide to wait until 2021 with the hopes that it can play in screens or they opt to go virtual, I don't know. I think that both things are good in some ways. I do think there's parts of this film that are hurt by watching virtually, the magnificence of the space. But the intimacy of the procedural moments mean that I didn't feel like I was losing it while I was watching the film, So I think that they could go either way. The good thing is the limited press it has received has been incredibly positive. So I'm very hopeful that it has a future. And one last thing I want to say is I loved getting to see Eva Green play a normal person. Like she's so out of the world. And it's actually one of the reasons Alice was attracted to her, is because she was like, well, for space, she's a great person, you know, and she has this like warrior intensity. But I'm like, okay, she can do it all.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly intimate film.
Yeah, it was nice to see her like kind of, I guess, I don't want to say stripped down, but just like not with like heavy makeup and like crazy costumes, and just like as like a normal person.
Her eyebrows.
Yeah.
I always feel like,
and like that really like heavy set eye makeup that makes her eyes just like pump out at you, like just poof, which is gorgeous for all the other films that she's been in, but it obviously wouldn't match this one. And it was just so nice to see her like just like raw and like there, and just her performance just in general, gorgeous and so captivating.
Yep, and she's carrying a heavy load in this film, like to make procedural moments dramatic and riveting, and to have that level of intimacy, and to communicate. Luckily, I felt confident that she could communicate a lot without words, and she even can in a straight film as well. But yeah, I'm really happy I saw it. I'm really happy that we got to have it as part of the festival. And I hope that it has a wonderful life ahead of it, where more people can see it for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah. And before we sign off, I didn't see any questions in the chat, but if anybody watching out in the ethersphere has any questions or thoughts or comments on the film, I mean, I didn't make it, so I can't answer the hows or the whys, but I watched it, so I can tell you what I saw. Nope.
That's okay.
I get it. I totally get it. And sometimes that can be better. All right. So have a wonderful rest of your evening. And we still have all of the films for the festival are available through the rest of the weekend. And at least in New England, the weather is going to be movie friendly. So cuddle up, stay in some PJs and watch some amazing films. I can't recommend. I mean,
your favorite big sweater.
Recommend them enough. Like it's just a tight, strong slate of wonderful films. So, and if anyone wants to come tomorrow night, Sarah and I will be here discussing Identifying Features, another amazing mother film.
Striking. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That I saw at Sundance. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I would give to see that in a big theater.
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
More tomorrow. All right.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.